After 2.5 years of guerrilla warfare, the country lay fractured. Cities burned. Countryside terrified. No one knew what tomorrow would bring. Ambushes became routine. IRA units struck swiftly, then vanished. British forces retaliated with raids, reprisals, and arrests. By early summer, British reprisals had intensified. Homes were burned. Civilians beaten. The Black and Tans patrolled towns with bayonets and suspicion. In Dublin, political leaders sensed a breaking point. Negotiation now seemed possible, if only to slow the bloodshed. In London, Prime Minister David Lloyd George offered to meet. A truce was proposed. For the first time, Dublin Castle paused, and across Ireland, the guns began to fall silent. But silence didn't bring peace. Troops stayed in their barracks. IRA units remained armed. The war wasn't over, it was waiting. This was Ireland on the edge. 1 week would decide its future. The ceasefire line had been drawn. But what lay ahead was more dangerous than anything before. On July 11, 1921, at noon, a formal truce came into effect. Both sides agreed to lay down arms, but kept their weapons close. Trust remained absent. In Dublin, Eamon de Valera prepared to travel to London. He would lead the Irish delegation in talks with the British government. Michael Collins, head of IRA intelligence, remained cautious. He saw the truce not as peace, but as a pause before the next fight. British forces stayed in barracks. Armored cars were parked but engines remained warm. Suspicion simmered on both sides. Across Ireland, people paused. Shops reopened. Children played in silence. No shots were fired, but few believed it would last. Behind closed doors, preparations began. British ministers drafted terms. Irish leaders debated sovereignty, allegiance, and sacrifice. De Valera insisted on meeting as equals. But Lloyd George spoke of compromise, not recognition. The truce had cooled the guns, but ignited a new kind of war. By late 1921, talks intensified. The Anglo-Irish Treaty was drafted in London, offering Dominion status, not full independence. The Irish delegation was divided. Michael Collins signed the treaty, believing it was a stepping stone to freedom. Others saw it as betrayal. Back in Dublin, the reaction was fierce. The Irish cabinet split. The country braced itself, not for British retaliation, but for civil war. The truce had given Ireland time, but time came with choices, and those choices would soon tear the country apart. In 1922, fighting erupted. Former comrades took sides. The dream of unity fractured, and the silence of July 1921 was replaced by gunfire once again. Yet for 1 week, Ireland paused. And in that pause came hope, fragile, unfinished, but real. It was the beginning. And the cost of beginning was high. Historians still revisit that week. Not for what it resolved, but for what it revealed. That freedom, in Ireland, was never simple. It was always earned, painfully. The July Truce was not a peace treaty. It was a pause, a breath between decades of conflict, and a decision that shaped the fate of generations. Ireland did not emerge whole. But in that week of silence, something shifted. The road to freedom was no longer just imagined. It was underway. Those who negotiated, those who signed, and those who waited, each left their mark. And though the price was steep, the echoes of that week still shape Ireland's soul. The week of July 1921 was not a peaceful ending. It was a delicate pause, negotiated with caution, and marked by uncertainty. Ireland, after years of guerrilla warfare, had reached a breaking point. Cities smouldered. Families mourned. Young men aged too fast in the fog of ambushes and reprisals. The violence had exhausted a nation, but not resolved its wounds. And then, silence. Not harmony. Just silence. No gunfire. No patrols. For one moment, both sides hesitated. The British Crown and the Irish Republican Army laid down arms. A truce was signed, and the country held its breath. Why does that moment matter today? Because it shows us how fragile peace can be, and how powerful. The truce didn't end the war, but it shifted the landscape. It wasn't a victory or surrender. It was recognition. That conversation, however strained, might serve better than bloodshed. In our time, when political divisions still echo, between nations, between communities, even within families, the 1921 truce reminds us that progress often begins not with fireworks, but with restraint. This is not a romantic memory. Negotiators met under pressure. Eamon de Valera demanded equality. Michael Collins saw danger, even in agreement. David Lloyd George spoke of compromise, never independence. Each man walked a tightrope of diplomacy and idealism, and all understood that what they signed could unravel everything they'd fought to build. Still, they met. There's something deeply human in that choice. To speak instead of strike. To listen, even through bitterness. That week in July created space. Space for thought. Space for future. Space where the shape of a new Ireland could begin to form. And though the Anglo-Irish Treaty would later divide the revolution, this truce gave the first glimpse that Ireland's freedom might be negotiated, not just fought. Today, as Ireland continues to examine its history, not in isolation but as part of a wider story, the truce offers perspective. It shows that politics and war are not just about victory and defeat. They're about cost, about endurance, and about compromise, no matter how uneasy. For younger generations, the July 1921 moment offers something vital, understanding that freedom is rarely handed down. It's built from imperfect tools. It's fought for by divided minds. And sometimes, its price is sorrow. For those in the diaspora, whose grandparents and great-grandparents lived through these stories, the truce is a touchstone. It marks the shift between colonial struggle and national identity. It's the beginning of a story that stretched across oceans, into the hearts of Irish communities around the world. And for peace builders, historians, teachers, and thinkers, the lessons run deeper still. The truce happened not because one side won, but because both sides knew losing would cost more. It reflects the tension found in conflicts everywhere: how to pause without surrender, how to protect without provoking, how to move forward, even when every direction feels like risk. The men and women who lived through that week in 1921 didn't know how history would judge them. They acted in fog, not clarity. Many disagreed. Some remained silent. And some, like Collins, would not live long enough to see how their decisions played out. But we see them now. Not as statues or slogans, but as people. People who tried. That effort, however incomplete, deserves memory. So yes, this week changed Ireland. Not because it solved everything, but because, for a moment, the country paused. And in that pause came possibility. We look back not to sanctify, but to understand. And in doing so, we find the heartbeat beneath history. The quiet moments where courage was measured not in rifles, but in words. In hesitation. In hope. That is why the July 1921 truce still matters. Because peace is a fragile thing. And its beginnings, whispered, cautious, uncertain, are worth remembering.
Step into the past and uncover the heart of Ireland. At Emerald Chronicle, we bring you hundreds of captivating documentaries exploring Irish history, myths, legends, and folklore. Our playlists guide you through Ireland's fascinating journey, from prehistoric Ireland, proto-historic and Celtic eras, and the early Christian and Viking periods, to the Anglo-Irish invasion and the lordship of Ireland.
Delve deeper into the Tudor conquest and religious conflicts, the union with Great Britain and the Great Famine, the fight for independence and the divisions of the 20th century, and Ireland's evolution into the 21st century. Best of all, we keep all our documentaries at 15 minutes or less, making it easy to explore Ireland's history, even on a busy day.
Every time you watch, you're supporting the upkeep of our channel. And when you share Emerald Chronicle, you're helping to promote Irish history and culture worldwide. We kindly ask you to like and share, and subscribe to Emerald Chronicle now. Let's keep Ireland's stories alive together.